at 9:03. If we could have the roll call, please.
Brooks,
Yeah.
Cowan, Dollinger, Curlitis, Ventura,
Present.
Weigel,
Here.
Markham.
Here.
You have a quorum. We also have Mr. Perry.
All right, Tom, if you want to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I think they're printing off copies, so we're going to move new business up, which is renewing contract for food service at River Valley Juvenile Center with Aramark Correctional Service from Downers Grove, Illinois. Does anybody want to make a motion?
Second.
Then move to second. Does anybody want to give a rundown really quick? Or?
Good morning. My name is Debbie Nicholas. I am Assistant Superintendent at the River Valley Detention Center. And we've had Aramark as a food vendor for us since 2008. We've renewed with the contracts every year. We're through this Illinois State Board of Education. So this is kind of a nuance with this contract because some of it is county, some of it is State Board of Education. Everything's been approved by the State Board of Education for us to proceed. Aramark has accepted to do the first year renewal. Each bid comes with, there's the bid document then becomes the contract, and then after that there's 2 one-year renewals. And Aramark has agreed to go for the first year renewal. So that's what this is. There is a CPI change, that's how the price adjustments are made, and I have included in your packet how that's arrived at, because there's a formula for that.
Does anybody have any questions? Thank you very much. There's a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I just realized that I forgot to approve the minutes. So if we could have a motion to approve the minutes from June 4th. So moved and seconded. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So now we're on to old business, which is a request for various ordinance amendments, and we've been discussing the draft tobacco ordinance changes, the deal with vaping, and I believe that the language is ready.
Yes. And there aren't a lot of changes from what Deputy Contro had proposed, several months ago. I did add in a few sections, and they'll be distributing my changes to you so that you have them. So that you have them, but there were just portions of the ordinance that talked about regulating tobacco and they had not added alternative nicotine products, and so I added that in a few spaces. The other thing that actually is not redlined in the copy but I want to add, and it's just technical, would be the enabling statute that authorizes you to regulate tobacco and nicotine, alternative nicotine products. So basically what was handed out to you several months ago is what I have reviewed and with some minor changes, and have before you today.
And when we move this forward to the county board, we'll have a public hearing there, correct?
That's correct.
Alrighty. So,
Jerry, alternate tobacco products, is that vapor or is there something else?
It's any alternative nicotine products, so products that have nicotine but are not prescription products that are used for tobacco cessation or nicotine cessation programs. So by and large it is the vaping products, but there are other nicotine products that might fall under the definition.
patches of gum would fall.
Right, unless they're the prescription, like I say, yeah.
Alrighty. Does anybody else have any questions? Turn on your mic.
Do we want to be limiting the gum and patches if people are trying to get off of cigarettes?
Well, if they're a part of a cessation program, we are not limiting them. They are specifically exempted out. If it is, and this is really regulating those for people under the age of 18, so minors is who we're talking about. And it's so they don't get hooked on the nicotine products.
don't want them to have gum either.
All right. I think we're getting copies. Right on time. Thank you.
Oh, this is not redacted. I like it not redacted.
The highlighted portions are new, and then the red line is what I have added. So you'll see I did not make substantial changes to what.
So, next year with the legalization of marijuana, will we need a new ordinance for that? Will we be able to use this in the schools to limit some of that? How does that work?
No, this is tobacco and nicotine products. Marijuana, to my knowledge, and I'm not going to claim to be an expert by any means, is not tobacco, nor does it have nicotine that I know of. I think its active ingredient is THC, which is different. So we would need an entirely separate ordinance. And that doesn't go into effect until January 1st, so we have some time to deal with the legalization of marijuana.
Marijuana is already legal in schools though, correct?
It is, as,
So
you know,
it will
and
remain.
Well, so is this though, right? I mean,
Yeah, this is
with
just,
insurance.
this is helping the schools have some teeth behind, because it's banned already, but it's,
Right, yeah.
as Lieutenant Hayes kind of indicated, that nobody takes it seriously, and the schools are kind of frustrated with that, so they came to us for some help.
And this would only, we can only regulate schools that are in unincorporated. So any of the high schools, I think it's primarily high schools, maybe there's some junior high, it's tobacco, I can imagine junior high. There are only a couple of high schools that are in unincorporated Will County. But that doesn't mean it would be limited to enforcement in the schools. It could conceivably be enforced outside of the schools.
Does anybody else have any questions, concerns? Mimi?
What happens when somebody can't pay, when a kid can't pay a fine?
Well, you know, I doubt that most of the kids will be able to, depending on their age. I think it will be the parents who will be charged.
Okay, what happens when the fine isn't paid?
Well, in administrative adjudication, you know, that's something that we're actually working on, collecting those fines. If it were to be taken to court, we typically get a memorandum of judgment, and we would record that as a personal debt owed. If you owed property, personal debts will attach to the property, but, and you would have to pay it off if you tried to remortgage or sell the property.
But would that be on the
But that would be on the
child's record
parents.
or the parents?
Well, right, and I will have to look into how we will deal with this with the, and this is one of the issues that we kind of raised, that this can sometimes be difficult to enforce, because you are dealing with minors. But I do think but ordinance violations don't require the parent to be present, so the debt would be against the child, it would be against the minor.
I'll be very honest. I don't think this is the solution. I was talking to some teenagers the other day, and they said the problem is teachers don't pay any attention to it.
Well, I'll ask Lieutenant Hayes to talk to the teachers one.
Well, okay, but on here, isn't there a thing that, oh, you're saying that they're not yet, the teachers are just not paying attention, so they were saying they won't write the fines up? Is that what you're saying?
So there are already rules in the schools, I think is what you're saying. I don't mean to put words in your mouth. And the teachers just are not bothering to enforce the rules that the schools have. There's certainly tools in the school's toolbox to discipline students. You know, it does quite often involve school board and whatnot if it goes that far. So it can be maybe a bit burdensome, so they may be looking for, but I don't know the status in the schools. It may be that, you know, it's just so difficult these days to discipline a student, having to go through all the due process. And the schools were not originally set up for due process type procedures. So they may be finding it just difficult. They're dealing with much bigger issues.
Okay, there is a fee schedule already in place now, this is just increasing it?
No,
No, this is brand new.
this is brand new ordinance
Okay.
for the county. What I'm saying is the county right now has nothing to deal with alternative nicotine products. What I'm saying is the schools themselves have rules,
Right.
and they have their own,
But the nicotine ones are already in place currently?
no,
Okay.
that's
So there's
new.
not even a fine for just like
No.
regular cigarettes?
Just for tobacco.
Okay. So my question is, if we pass this, is there a plan to educate the schools and teachers and principals and students of these new changes?
I mean, that would be Lieutenant Hayes's as our school resource officer job, right? I mean,
I expect so. My understanding is the schools have asked for this.
yes, the schools are the ones who
So
requested.
the impetus is coming from the schools. They are looking for some mechanism other than their own due process system to deal with school students using alternative nicotine products in the schools. My understanding is they just seem to flaunt it. They don't really care.
And we can notify Dr. Walsh at the school's office and have him tell them.
So my opinion is, I do think for some kids this will be a deterrent, and their parents, you know, the disappointment of their parent paying the fine may also be a deterrent. But I would like, if we pass this, for them to come back and explain to us how they plan to educate the schools and the kids, or even after they've educated them, if they want to come back then and say, this is what we did, so that everyone is aware of the new fines going on. And hopefully that alone will be a deterrent for kids not bringing the baby
We'll have
products.
Lieutenant Hayes come back. Julie?
I have two things. One is a suggestion. As a parent, when we fill out tons of paperwork at the beginning of the year, every year, and write tons of checks, the schools could easily provide the parents with a document that states these rules, these laws, and what the consequences are, and have the parent sign that document acknowledging it, that they understand this. The second thing is, I'm wondering, will any of this extend to transportation that's provided through the school district? I see kids jumping off the bus all the time with a lit cigarette or vaping. They do it every day. So I was wondering if we're including that portion of education as
I
well.
would imagine that only if they're in unincorporated areas, because we don't have jurisdiction over anything that's not unincorporated. So if they're vaping in the city of Joliet, then the city of Joliet's vaping
Well,
ordinances
okay,
would apply.
within unincorporated then, so the busing and the transportation,
Then they would be in violation of our ordinance, so
Yeah, this is anywhere.
anywhere that's unincorporated. So, and for the schools, I would say that our job is just to make sure that the school knows, and how they get the information out is on them, because we're not here to dictate how schools deal with their parents and their students. They asked us for a favor, and I think it makes sense to include vaping and other nicotine products in the ordinance. And I think it's up to them to make sure that their parents and teachers and staff is trained, and the students know that they're not joking around with it. So,
well, Tyler, I don't think it would be a bad idea if we could have some type of a simple one-page document that explains all this, that they could provide to the parents. I think that's very helpful.
Tom?
I'm sure there's a school handbook for students that'll be updated when we pass this ordinance. It would include that information. I don't think we can ask for something special necessarily.
So this has been discussed in the coalition, the Sheriff's Coalition, and the vaping is the issue. Vaping, there is no control, and kids, because you can't see smoke anymore, so there's no, what I'm concerned about, and I'm not crazy about fines, because I think that the kids who can least afford it get suffered with that. But Lieutenant Hayes has said the parents don't care. So if you don't stock the parent with something, then the parents aren't taking the vapes away. That's part of the problem. However, we do have a tobacco program out of our public health department, and they've worked with Shorewood and some other communities to manage this. And so my only concern is that we're working collaboratively, that it's not contradicting one versus the other. So it might be helpful to find out what the health department's doing. My concern too is it's here and it's not in the public health committee. So that, now I realize it's an ordinance, so it's different, but it's a little more complicated.
Rachel and Laura.
Is there an option to have some type of adjudication if they go through some program as opposed to paying the fee?
That would be a Mary question.
Oh, I guess you didn't get, I
The fees are
apologize.
on the, yeah.
Maybe I didn't hand the whole thing to Beth, I apologize.
Mary, my question is, in addition to the fees, could there be an option for some type of adjudication or program?
Let me refresh my memory.
Okay.
Lori, while she's looking it over.
Oh, it's missing.
We'll let Lori ask her question and come back to that.
Kathleen,
Sorry, I'm
I'm
sorry.
right here.
Lori in the back.
That's the reason why I attend these, because there's so much crossover.
Yeah.
So we can discuss this at public health and safety as well.
Anybody know any stand-up while we wait for the fee schedule?
I apologize.
Oh, it's
Sorry
okay.
that I had given everything to her.
I mean, Herb's our resident comedian, so.
I didn't write it today.
Yeah.
And no, we had it down, Mark.
I was talking to my interns, and they were like, I said, well, isn't partially because people think they're flash drives, and so they don't see them? And the kids were like, they don't look anything like flash drives. People are just ignoring them. I was like, and then the one kid says, and who uses a flash drive anymore?
Actually, that's not true.
All right.
They look like thumb drives. They do look like thumb drives.
They were saying that they like stand up differently on the computer. They were like, you can spot them a mile off.
Yeah,
So,
everyone has an opinion on it.
yeah, exactly.
So, no, in our ordinance, there are only fines. So,
Rachel, you asked for a question about adjudication.
Yes, so to the point that was made that we don't want to penalize people who can't just pay it and move on with their life, and this is supposed to be a deterrent for the kids. So is there an option that a parent or a child could choose for their child to go to some type of class or do
not in
tuition?
the ordinance, no. I think that there is also a state statute that prohibits tobacco, the sale of tobacco to minors. No, actually, I will say, with the new enactment of that statute, which went into effect yesterday, prior to that, possession by a minor was a violation of the law. They removed possession, and most of the penalties in the state law are aimed at the retailers, not at the minors.
Right.
So, but when it, and this is why I had to double check to see, which provided, but under the former statute, there was a provision where the courts could waive the fine and send the violator to a smoking or, in this case, it would be a nicotine cessation program. But because possession is no longer illegal, I don't think that's even an option.
Under
So-
the age of 21?
Correct. They
It's not written
removed,
that it's illegal then to possess it?
it is not illegal to possess it as of yesterday.
Lori?
I believe
Not
that,
under state statute.
I believe that the health department has a program for this already. I'm pretty sure.
They do have a cessation program.
Yes, they
There's
do.
no question the health department has had cessation programs for years and years and years that are very, very good.
No, that's not what she's referencing. They have a policy. So they're funded under a grant, and their grant works from the policy level because that's what makes change, right? If you put policy in place. So they have a policy recommendation that they work with all the different communities on to get them to pass it. This is not the same, and this one has been, and you're right, they have programs and things for that, but this is the policy that we're talking about, and the policy is different. And the idea of fining kids is an old strategy that is, especially in this day and age, I don't think it's going to be very effective. But I don't know. And so my question also is, what did the schools say about it? I know the schools want help.
This is what they requested.
They desperately asked for help.
That they requested that vaping be treated like tobacco, which is
Right.
what we're doing in our ordinance.
Right.
I mean, we're treating tobacco, alternative nicotine products like tobacco.
Right.
So we're just putting it on the same playing field as all other tobacco products,
And
which
do
is
we
what the
find
schools asked.
people? Do we find people for the tobacco products too?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the same exact fine for if you're caught vaping if I get caught vaping and he's caught smoking, it's the same fine.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're just treating it the same,
Yeah.
which is why I think that it'll help schools and so.
Mary, can you tell us who runs the cessation program and what that entails?
It's the health department. I do not know, I think Cindy Jackson I know she's been very involved in the smoke-free, in enforcing the smoke-free legislation. So I don't know for sure if she's in charge of the cessation program, but
Is
she's
that
very.
paid through taxpayer dollars then, or do the people who want the program pay for it?
I suspect that they have some grant money. Most of these are, and so it's probably a combination of grant, but I don't know that for sure.
Lori, and
I'll make sure I have information tomorrow, Public Health and Safety.
and this is going to have a public hearing at the next county board meeting, so we can, if you have more questions, and we'll get the information out from the.
My only concern is, I mean, I know the schools want this, so we're on school break, I know there's summer schools, but one of the things is, would it be prudent for us, before moving to the county board, to add that? I know I don't want to delay it another month, this is the third month we've seen it in front of us. If that's something we wanted to do in committee, or that's not.
What are you talking about?
To add it to the fees, instead of, in lieu of the fees, you go through a program, and, that, because I think the idea of finding them at larger amounts is so that the parents are aware, right? But if you're saying that you think that's taxing, or, putting the burden on people unnecessarily, just because they didn't know, well then, going through a program would also bring that awareness to the parents, one would hope, and maybe scare the kids enough to not do it again, but.
I mean, the point of a fine is to give it teeth. You don't want to say, we're going to fine you unless we do this, and then you can just don't get caught next time. That's my concern about it. I mean, I think that we should definitely encourage students, if they're caught, they should be, we have this program that we highly recommend, they should do that. And then I think we can go forward and see how it goes, and if we think that we need to come back and change this, and then I think we can do that. So.
But now, Mary, if I can ask Mary this question. There's speed limit signs all over Will County that are knocked down. And if I didn't see it and get a ticket for speeding, ignorance is not an excuse.
Correct, ignorance is not an excuse, although I don't know that I would.
If I didn't know
no, well, I don't know that speed limit signs are necessarily your best option, or your best example of that, because speed limits are different. On the same road, you can have various speed limits, and I think the sign is posted so that you know. So I don't think a judge would uphold a ticket if the sign was not up. But that being said, the fact that you don't know that something is a violation of an ordinance or that something is illegal, that ignorance is not allowed, is not an exemption.
Yes.
So, if you let the weeds in your yard grow 3 feet tall, the fact that you say, I didn't know that was a violation of the ordinance will not get you off, so, correct.
Thank you.
Tom?
Do we have the authority to have an alternate program?
I don't think that you do. I can look into that. The statute allows the county to charge fines. It does not allow you to compel people but going through my mind, if it's a choice that you make, so you'll be fined unless you do this, and you are making a choice, then perhaps that would pass muster, and I can do the research relative to that.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to move this to the full county board where we'll have a public hearing.
Move.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion has carried. Thank you, Mary. Then the other thing under the ordinances, the various ordinance amendments was a few months ago, it was brought up the burning of garbage and construction waste, not yard waste, so don't worry, we're not bringing that back. But the fine was considerably less than what it would cost to get a garbage can or a dumpster. So I honestly didn't feel that we should let this one pass, and our current ordinance was passed out. So really I'd like this committee to look at increasing the fine structure for construction and garbage burning. So every once in a while. Mary?
So I just want to, I'm looking at it, and 500 is the maximum fine that you can impose for an ordinance violation. And I will note that burning garbage and such is a violation, it is a crime, it is a misdemeanor, and people can be charged. So in the toolbox of the deputy, when they go to something like this, is that they could actually charge them with a crime. And when you're talking about a large facility that would be doing this, which it sounds to me you're talking about, it would seem to me that would be the more prudent cause of action, is to actually charge them with a violation of the Environmental Protection Act rather than an ordinance violation.
Well, I know when I knock doors, people complain about their neighbors burning their trash. And I said, did you call? And they said, yeah, we'll come out, give them a warning ticket, and then they never hear from them again. But then I'll say, did you call again? Well, no, I didn't want to be burdensome, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think if you're burning trash, I mean, I guess we could give it up to the deputies if they want to write it.
Well, it's their discretion how they want to do it.
But I do think that if the trash dumpster is $350 and you only have to pay $300, well then, or less, then it's not really a deterrent.
So I guess when I hear dumpster, I'm thinking commercial establishment. I'm not thinking.
So like I recently got a shed, which I had to get a dumpster to throw the old shed away, but if I lived somewhere, I could have just burned it, and technically that would be construction debris, so.
Yeah, yes, it would.
So,
especially if there are shingles, which are very bad, yes.
And tires, I think our ordinance specifically states like tires and
tires
stuff.
Tires are horrendous.
So, I mean, I just, I'm trying to remember what month it was brought up. It was brought up a few months ago.
Yes,
it was just a concern that our ordinance didn't allow for more stringent.
So the state statute only allows you to fine up to a certain level, and that's $500 is the maximum. So what I would, and we can have a conversation with the sheriff's office about maybe citing them under the Environmental Protection Act rather than an ordinance violation, so they're actually charged with an offense.
Okay, I mean, I'm willing to try that for a few months and see.
Is there a way to have, I mean, one or the other, but still increase the amount? So if they decide not to write them, I mean, maybe it's the first time they've ever done it and they want to impose the fine and not write them.
They always have the discretion to give a warning initially, but that would behoove the neighbor to call a second time. Because quite often, and I think it's appropriate, the sheriff's office believes part of their job is to educate the public. So once they're educated not to do this, then they would expect it does not happen again. But they don't know it happens again if they don't get the call again. So I
you're
think
saying
that,
right now they're using this fine as a warning?
not the fine, no, I thought you were referring to a warning.
No, I mean as opposed to being charged with misdemeanor.
Sure, they could do an ordinance if it's somebody who is a habitual offender. They could give them the ordinance violation initially, and then if they got called a second time, they could write the violation under the Environmental Protection Act.
So I think that's what we should educate them for. Now, whether we want the fine to be 3 or 500, if it's gonna be used as a warning, I don't, we can discuss that, I guess. But I think that if that's the case, if they've done it more than once, I think
That's up to the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
That's their discretion
Absolutely.
as to how to charge the violation.
Lori had her hand up back there.
And again, we need to remember this is in unincorporated areas. You know, municipal
Correct.
areas may have different ordinances than us.
Tom?
I'd be in favor of the $500.
So would I.
And then if it's an alternate, they could give them the alternate that the state's attorney talked about, but at least the sheriff would have an option.
Yeah, and since they do have an option, I'd be okay with just $500 flat. I mean, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on it, since you would still have a little discretion, but.
Perhaps we can look at the structure of the fines so that depending on the type of waste, so that rather than just having a nuisance fire, we have different types of waste. And if it's trash, you know, that would be a different fine than perhaps green grass, which is also a nuisance fire.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm not really as concerned, I'm more concerned with like the tires and like the bigger stuff that's like really harmful.
Could the sheriff come up here and answer why they don't do EPA violations and why they're asking for $500?
Typically, when we get called to these, there's multiple, like 2009, 4th of July, I wrote 3 of these. One, she was burning her barn down on Briggs Street rather than get a dumpster or a demo team. She was fine with the ordinance, $25, whatever it was at the time. Second, they were burning their shed. There was toilets in the fire. There was old debris. That one I almost got thrown in the fire because they were all drinking, and the fire department had to come and put it out. And they were all upset about the $25 ordinance. And the third one was just your run-of-the-mill fire that got out of hand. So I was on 3 separate fire calls where the fire department had to come out and put these fires out. That was my threshold for writing every one of them were taken. You know, and the barn was just crazy. She thought it was okay.
Would you enforce through EPA or not, or you don't think that should be an option?
I mean, you could, but the time factor, when you go and call the call on the 4th of July for bonfires, to take somebody down to the county jail or the booking process with the prints and pictures, you would never get to those other additional calls. I mean, typically this is something that happens not at all or all the time.
I thought it was like landscapers and construction sites.
Personally, I haven't seen much of that. You know, the barn was probably the biggest. Yeah. I mean, people call about burning leaves and such, but you don't get a ton of calls on this either.
All right, so I think going forward, we'll just look at the fine structure.
Right, so, and that's, so currently the third offense is $500. The first offense is $50.
But I-
$150 for the second and
But I think
$500
our-
for the third. So we can restructure the fines?
Is that different? The nuisance fires, is that different than the accessory burning ordinance is currently 35?
I think there's a different, hold on, I'm going off memory, I think there's another, this doesn't qualify as a nuisance fire, I think this was a different category under our ordinance.
Is waste on here.
Yeah,
So I
So
it's
I
a
think
$35 penalty for the waste one?
I might have sent the wrong ordinance number when I emailed this.
So I can work with Brian
Right, yeah.
and look at different structures of the fees, and we can talk about
Yeah, I just
where
want-
his main issues are, and we can maybe restructure it.
Yeah, because I mean, it's just,
We don't get a huge volume.
I know.
of calls. It's very minute, so,
Okay.
you know, like, we're not out there hammering people unless the fire department.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's the complaint then.
okay. I mean, and it was just brought up, and I
Yeah.
thought that it was a little bit of a joke that it was such a low fine for
No,
what
it is a joke.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I mean, because, I mean, you shouldn't, yeah,
Well,
so,
yeah, if you're
Julie?
doing an ordinance, so-
In the case of a violent, an ordinance violation, and you have a structure that's being burned purposefully, and the fire department gets called out, and additional fire trucks come out, who pays the cost for that?
Yeah, that's on the taxpayers.
Yeah, taxpayers too.
I would propose that perhaps if the violation is to that degree, you have an additional tier that you can, and because that's far less cost to burn down your barn for $500 than to do it the right way. So you want to deter them from doing that. And
Well, as Mary said, we're capped at 500 thanks to the state of Illinois, so it's the highest we, as a county board, can go, that we can look at, so.
Well, I do think we should increase the $35 fine.
Oh, yeah.
But to that point, I'm with Mary on this one, that maybe in case, like the shed and the barn, I understand the burden of, filing a misdemeanor, but they are putting off quite a lot of pollutants into the air when they do that. And so, to Julie's point, 500 isn't that much. A demolition team would have cost 3 times, 4 times that much. So this is an easy way for them to skirt that law. Now, a lot of people aren't going to do it, like you said, there's not a lot of calls, but I think that there should be some bigger penalties if they're burning entire barns down.
Tom?
I would think the fire department would have some authority to have a fine also if it's something that is done on purpose.
Yeah, I don't know what the fire protection districts have. I mean, certainly, they are certainly allowed to go put out fires, and they are, when they have declared, a moratorium on fires due to weather and whatnot, but their authority is limited, but, so what authority they have to charge someone to come out and put out a fire, I am not certain at all. I don't work with fire departments, but I can find out.
So I think we'll be discussing this again next month. So I think we have enough to go forward with there. So thank you, Chip. Is there any other new business? Anybody? Public comment? Public comment going once? Public comment going twice? Nobody? Really quick, I just want to congratulate the Chief Judge and all of his staff, the Clerk of the Circuit Court, the State's Attorney's Office, and everybody who worked at the expungement fair. I know there were quite a few county board members there that volunteered, and it was impressive how quickly they got everybody through and how happy everybody was. So I saw the Chief Judge stuck his head in earlier, and Roger ran away on us. So, but I just wanted to say that they did a wonderful job. So, and I'll bring it up at the county board meeting too. But it was very impressive how well that whole program went.
Do you have final numbers of how many were adjudicated?
I can get you that. They're still working on it because when they came through the program, they got another court date, which would have been, I think the judge said late September or October, and then because they have to have other agencies have to have a time to object. So we'll have more numbers later on, but it was very impressive, and we did have quite a few walkouts, so that was nice.
And we have the update coming up the 10th. We may have those numbers by the 10th next week. We have that meeting.
So, again, everybody, congratulations and good job. We have no need for executive session, so I'll take a motion to adjourn. So moved and seconded, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion has carried. Thanks, everybody.
Don't marry this.
Yeah.